President Bush had planned at the end of the 2008 presidency to do a new nuclear deal where he would make new sales of nuclear energy from Russia to United States utilities, and he pulled that off the table because of the invasion. And the Clinton administration, the Obama administration with Hillary Clinton at the lead, Joe Biden in the background, they made the decision, let's put that back on the table. And so he's sitting there, and all of a sudden, after delivering oodles of evidence, he comes out and he finds out they just approved the Uranium One deal. The Obama administration just gave them 20% of America's, after I just told you this is their strategy of global domination. They're paying kickbacks.
So Obama knew, Robert Mueller knew, and there's a lot of other familiar names that knew before the Uranium One deal was approved, like John Brennan at the CIA, and James Clapper was the DNI. If anything, with the Uranium One approval, like the person it falls on most is the DNI. The DNI is supposed to prepare a threat assessment and say, does this deal pose any threats to the United States? And of course it does. You can see with Russia's oil and gas strategy in Ukraine that Russia controlling energy resources in the United States is not a good idea.
Former CIA officer charged with spying for China, CIA, that's yesterday. And then 38 minutes ago, former FBI attorney pleads guilty in Durham probe. I don't know if you just saw this.
Yeah.
This just came out right now. The Justice Department unusual probe and so investigation links between Trump campaign and Russia netted its first guilty plea Wednesday as former FBI attorney Kevin Clinesmith admitted to altering an email used to seek surveillance warrants against former Trump campaign advisor Carter Page.
Russia, Russia, Russia. We heard that hoax for how long? And the deep state with the news just went into this cycle of perpetual lies. It turns out that this whole Russia, Russia, Russia actually started way before President Trump got into office. This started back when it turned from the Clintons into Obama. And they were dealing with Russia and the uranium sales within America. And they botched this up with so many different ways. The interview here will just blow your mind on the gravity towards corruption at the highest level in office through both Clinton and Obama. And then they just pushed it towards something else because they had to bait and switch from the catastrophe that they had set up or that were going to set up with Russia. We know what happened with Russia and them supplying all of Europe with natural gas. Well, they were just about to do the same thing with uranium and America. And it's unbelievable that they were trying to do this and then turn around and say, Russia is the biggest enemy. You can't do anything with Russia. They're our enemy. They were trying for 10, 15 years to try to get deals together with Russia that were going to hurt America in the biggest way.
You have the Obama administration, Obama, Biden, and Clinton, and they want to reboot the relationship. The relationship went off the rails in 2008 when Russia invaded Georgia, and there was a military conflict there at the end of the Bush administration. President Bush had planned at the end of the 2008 presidency to do a new nuclear deal where he would make new sales of nuclear energy from Russia to United States utilities, and he pulled that off the table because of the invasion. And the Clinton administration, the Obama administration with Hillary Clinton at the lead, Joe Biden in the background, they made the decision, let's put that back on the table. That's our carrot. And he wants nuclear business. We can give him nuclear business. We want a better relationship, a more stable world. They're thinking about Iran at that point, the Iran deal. You can't do an Iran deal without Russia in the game. And they start on this track of really giving away a lot of things in an inurement policy. Basically, we want to get in good graces. We'll sell them a lot of uranium from our utilities. We'll sell them some raw uranium under our ground. We'll help them build their own Silicon Valley because they envied our Silicon Valley. So they create a place called Skolkovo. The Clinton administration does all that, and they feel like, all right, we're getting on a great track. And then all of a sudden, Vladimir Putin pulls the rug out and goes into Crimea in Ukraine. And now the Clintons and the Bidens and the Obama folks have two things. Their policy didn't work. And now there's a book about to come out by Peter Schweitzer that reveals how much money on the sidelines people were collecting in this, and they have to neutralize that story. And that's where I think the Christopher Steele dossier gets its origins.
I mean, that's as close as an investigation as we've had. There's never been a report. So when they say debunked, they're declaring it. There's nothing really debunked about it. I'm not even quite sure what issue they're saying is debunked. I mean, did Putin buy the uranium? Yes. Did several Obama figures lobby on behalf of Uranium One, and did the Clintons take money from shareholders in the deal? Yes. What they say is debunked is you can't prove the intent of the donations.
And there's an amazing anecdote in the book where the first time he's about to deliver $50,000 in cash in a briefcase to the Russian head of Rosatom in the United States, he can't sleep the night before. His hands because they have a pen camera in there and they're going to record this transaction for the FBI. And he thinks he's going to get caught and killed. And he can't sleep and his hands are sweaty. I remember them telling this story. Well, he delivers the money, they take it gladly. And now he's on the inside. And for 3-4 years, he's informing the FBI that at the same time that the Obama administration is doing these deals, they're going to give billions of dollars of American utility contracts to Russia. The government arranges that, American government arranges that. They allow them to buy uranium under the ground, a transaction that's known as Uranium One. Believe it or not, that was not the most valuable thing that Vladimir Putin got out. He wanted those billions of dollars of nuclear fuel contracts, because then American utilities would be reliant on Russian fuel for years to come. And he knew it. The documents show if he got that deal in place, Americans would not mine their own uranium. So all of America's uranium mines have shut down. We couldn't produce uranium tomorrow if Vladimir Putin shut us off. It's made it to the desk of Robert Mueller. And so he's sitting there, and all of a sudden, after delivering oodles of evidence, he comes out and he finds out they just approved the Uranium One deal. The Obama administration just gave them 20% of America's, after I just told you this is their strategy of global domination. They're paying kickbacks, and the agents tell him, why, and he asked the agents, why did they let this happen? He said, you have to ask your politics about politics. And he became very demoralized. But why? That's the most important part of the story that's never been debunked. I mean, people argue, do donations follow policy or do policy follow donations? That debate's going to go on in Washington long after we're gone. But it is irrefutable that at the moment, the Obama administration, Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden, President Obama authorized all of these transfers of contracts and uranium to the Russians. They knew the recipient company, Rosatom, was engaged in conspiracy in the United States, racketeering, kickbacks, extortion, and bribery. And that's what the ultimate indictment came out. There are 4 men sitting in prison. They convicted 4 people for this.
So Obama knew, Robert Mueller knew, and there's a lot of other familiar names that knew before the Uranium One deal was approved, like John Brennan at the CIA, and James Clapper was the DNI. If anything, with the Uranium One approval, like the person it falls on most is the DNI. The DNI is supposed to prepare a threat assessment and say, does this deal pose any threats to the United States? And of course it does. You can see with Russia's oil and gas strategy in Ukraine that Russia controlling energy resources in the United States is not a good idea.
The spy playbook called discoverable influence operations. They do it in such an obvious way that Americans discover it, and then they spend their next few days scratching their head like, what are the Russians up to, and why are they compromising Hillary Clinton, or why are they compromising Donald Trump? They want us to think that. They want us to discover it. It's part of their playbook. And when you go back through the 2009 to 2019 period, and you look at that the way a professional CIA expert looks at it, the Russians wanted Anna Chapman's people to be found near Hillary Clinton. Oh my God, Hillary Clinton's got a Russia problem. They wanted that $500,000 check to Bill Clinton at that speech to come out, because then it causes distrust. They want the meeting at the Trump Tower to be discovered. Why do we know that? The Russian lawyer that went and did that meeting was here in the United States on one of the most rarest of visas. It's called a parole visa. It means the Justice Department went to a federal court and said, you must let this woman in the country because she's very important to one of our cases. And while she's under the thumb of the Justice Department, what does she do? She walks over and has a meeting with Donald Trump's team at Trump Tower. if you were doing real spy work, that would be the most obvious thing you wouldn't want to be discovered, right? You'd use someone that you'd use someone that looked like a normal, everyday person. They want these things to be discovered, so we go into a 3-4 year debate. And the way the Russia scandal played out, we played Vladimir Putin's expectations to beyond anything he could imagine. We got our country in a big tizzy. We fought with each other. We accused each other of being Russian spies. And that's exactly what he wanted, and none of it was true. It was all smoke and mirrors, and I think that's what the book really points out. Listen, the reality is the sanctions that are on Russia today are far more severe than anything Barack Obama ever did, including after Crimea. Under the Obama administration, there was no lethal aid given from the United States to Ukraine. President Trump gave that. If you switch to China and you look at the court cases in the last few months, they're beginning to unravel a program called the Thousand Talents Program, where these academics in America take cash to work with the Chinese, and it's portrayed certainly as an influence operation. Well, if you look at when these contracts started, they all occurred under the Obama years. They began then, and they're being uncovered and now reversed by President Trump. I think if you talk to people on the front lines, and they set aside for a second whether they like President Trump or not, and say who's doing a better job of tightening up this concern that I just mentioned, this security concern, I think the Trump administration has been credited by the intelligence professionals and law enforcement professionals as being more aggressive.
They hired American lobbyists. They hired the Podesta Group. While John Podesta, the brother of the Podesta Group, is inside the Obama administration. So, I mean, the Podesta Group is one of the most well-connected lobbying firms at the time.
We began to realize that this was the use of the FBI, the NSA's database, and the NSA intercepts, the U.S. intelligence community's most awesome tools, were being used to carry out a dirty trick to create a false picture that Donald Trump was in bed with Russia. And as we prove or try to lay out in the fallout, it was a dirty trick to keep Hillary Clinton's baggage and the Obama administration's failures from being the subject of the day.